Of that I'm sure. She smiled at me on the subway. She was with another man, but I won't lose no sleep on that, 'cause I've got a plan. You're beautiful. You're beautiful. You're beautiful. It's true. I saw your face in a crowded place, and I don't know what to do, 'cause I'll never be with you. Yes, she caught my eye as we walked on by. She could see from my face that I was fucking high, and I don't think that I'll see her again, but we
Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Let's see. Can you guys hear me? Ooh, Connie's here. Hello, Connie. Hello, Daniel. Hello, Gary, Saeed, Greg.
Hello.
Greg and Craig. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How is everybody? All right. My name's Dan Roshan, and I'm going to tell you today about the process to buy a home. We're going to talk a little bit about how to do so with no money down, and we're going to learn about the steps of personal finance, mortgage, the role of the real estate agent, the home buying process, the role of the home inspector, and of the closing. So typically when I teach, it is a much better event if we can see each other, because if you could just see me, then I don't even know if you're there. And so I'm going to invite for you to turn your videos on, because when you turn your videos on, what happens is that you're able to hello, thank you, Connie, for turning your video. Thank you, Leslie. You're able to get more out of the conversation. Hello, Gary. Hello, Saeed. It's a pleasure to meet you guys. And Craig and Greg and Dan. Of course, if you're not able to, that's fine. But if you can click that little button on your screen there and keep your video on, then we'll have a better conversation. I promise you. So my name's Dan. I sell real estate here in the DMV area. I've been selling homes since 2007. There's not a nook or a cranny within the DMV area that I don't know inside and out. I've got a lot of experience in helping home buyers, helping home sellers. I owned a real estate brokerage for 10 years, so I've overseen thousands of transactions in my career. So I'll definitely be able to answer all your questions today. I'll be able to guide you through the process, and also most likely be able to highlight some things that you may not be aware of. So Gary's driving to DC, living in Atlanta. I'm from DC, living in Atlanta. Gotcha. All right, cool. Well, thanks for being with us, Gary. And so there's one of three type of people here. There's people who are in the market to buy a home. There's people who are just curious, and then there's real estate agents who are just looking for better ways to do business. Whoever you are welcome. And my goal today is to be able to provide you value. If you're a real estate buyer looking to buy a home, I'd love an opportunity to apply for the job to help you. If you're just curious, hopefully I get your curiosity itch today. And if you're an agent, let's talk. I bet you I can help you in business, because I do coach agents across the country as well. And if you are an agent, I invite you to go to a website called nobrokemonths.com. But for everyone that's not an agent, let's talk about the home buying process. So let's talk about personal finances first, because the personal finances is really the starting point of being able to buy a home. So certainly you're going to have to be able to afford to pay for a mortgage. You're going to have to afford to be able to pay for a bit of a down payment. A lot of times we can get there's some grant programs available in Virginia that can help you with the down payment. there's going to be some closing costs. A lot of times we can get the seller to pay for some of those closing costs as well. So there's loan programs in Virginia that will allow for you to get into the home with as little as zero, assuming that you have decent credit. And there's a small amount that you would have to pay for the home inspection and maybe for the appraisal. But outside of that, there are some programs that are available to you. Now, with those programs, you may end up paying a little bit higher in interest rates, and so that, so there's not like a one size fits all when you talk about real estate and when you talk about buying a home. One of the things that I want you guys to know is that we're in a very, very unique little dip in the marketplace right now, because last week there was the bank failures. This week, that's causing the interest rates to actually be a little bit more in our favor. Previous to the banks crashing or the banks going out of business, the Fed was saying that they were going to continue to raise rates in the overnight rate. And what that means is that when banks close at the end of the day, they have to have a certain amount of money in the deposits based off of how much money that they loan out. And if they don't have enough money, then they have to borrow from the Fed. They borrow from the Fed charges them a rate. It's called the overnight rate. They put the money in the bank overnight. The next morning, they pay the Fed back. They start business again, and they continue that cycle. That rate is not a direct cost to the consumer yet. Just like any other business, if you go to the gas station, I see Connie's driving right now. I know Greg's driving right now. If you guys stop for gas and the product is more expensive, then that's ultimately going to be passed off to us as the consumers. And so that's the way that the interest rates work. Now, as I say that, we're in a unique situation where the banks closing, the Silicon Valley Bank and I think there's two other banks as well, is actually in our benefit. So what you have to understand is managing your personal finance is going to be vital for you to be able to pay for a home. And what I want you to understand is no matter what, unless if you're living in your mama's basement, you're paying somebody's mortgage. Okay, so now you're either paying your own mortgage or you're paying your landlord's mortgage, if that makes sense to you. And if you live in your mama's basement, hey, God bless you. I can go with it. You guys are all right. Hey, I'm not here to make any crude comments. I'm just teasing you guys. All right. So pros and cons of home ownerships. And so we understand, what are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? So shout out. I'd love for you guys to participate. What are some advantages to owning a home? What do you guys think? What are some advantages to being a homeowner?
Grow your equity.
Grow your equity. All right. Build wealth. Thank you, Dan.
Taxes.
Taxes. Okay. Saving taxes. Anthony Dimitui.
How you doing, Dan? Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well. It's a pleasure.
Yes, it's a good investment to have a home. Always the best investment there is.
All right. Best investment that there is. What else do you guys have? What's an advantage to owning a home?
Being able to do what you want with your own home.
Being able to do what you want when you're on home. Now we'll talk about HOAs as well, because in so there are some communities that there's going to be some sort of restrictions on that. But for the most part, well, here's the thing: you absolutely have a lot more freedom of doing what you want, whether you're an HOA or not. And so absolutely, I love that, Gary. What else? Let's hear one more pro to owning a home, and then we'll talk about some cons. What's another benefit to owning a home? JR, welcome. Thanks for being here. What about just, and Dan Derby's had mentioned it at the beginning about building equity. What about just creating wealth? Okay, like if you look at wealth in the United States and wealth in the world, actually, you look at the people who develop wealth, it is those that own real estate is often the biggest factor to that development of wealth. What about, developing a legacy? Maybe you're a first-time home buyer and you've never owned a home ever before. And you're considering right now to say, hey, I want to own a home, yet I'm afraid. I get it, because we think about That's $500,000, $250,000, $750,000, whatever the cost is. And we're all probably in different price brackets, right? Well, whatever that is, even if it's only $250,000, right? You hear that number, you're like, dude, that is $250,000. And I get that. Yet again, we go back to that piece of you're either paying your own mortgage or you're paying somebody else's mortgage. Okay, because though that $250,000 is there, you're paying the payments on a monthly basis the same way as you would, your rent. And what you have to understand is that the appreciation on top of that 250, 500, or a million, or whatever the case may be, the appreciation on that is very real money. The other piece of it is it is a leveraged investment. So when I say it's a leveraged investment, what do I mean by that? So let's go into, let's say you're going down with like a little bit of money down, not no money, but a little bit of money down. And let's say you buy a $500,000 home. And let's say conservatively, it appreciates at 4% annually. Does anybody know what the S&P Index 500 appreciates annually on average over the last 30 or so years? Anybody want to throw out a number? 10%. So now 10% for the S&P 500. So that's basically, it's the top 500 companies. And they always are the top 500 companies, because the ones that are like at 499 and 500, when they don't meet through certain threshold, they replace them with the other company, right? And that's the way that index stock works so well, and why it gets a pretty standard return of, call it 10%. Why is owning real estate at a 4% return a better investment through time than stock at an index 500 at 10%? If you needed $500,000 to invest in the S&P 500, how much money would you need?
500,000.
500,000. If you buy a $500,000 home, how much money do you need? Anywhere from 10 to
20%.
Yeah, anywhere even from 3 to 20%. Okay, so whatever the case may be, and then again, there's some grant programs where we could be as little as zero. Whatever the case may be, the 4% isn't 4% of is a 4% of appreciation off of 500,000, but your return is based off of whatever your investment was. And let's say you put $20,000 into there. So then 4% of $500,000 is what? Dan, do the math for me. I know you can do the math quickly. What's that? 5? Help me out, man. What's 4% of 500,000? 5% would be 25,000. 4% would be 20,000. 20,000?
20,000.
Okay, so now think about this. You put in 20, it appreciated 20. You got 100% of a return right there in 1 year's time. That's why real estate is a better investment for the long haul. So what are the cons of owning a home? Like what's the negatives? What are some disadvantages? What do you guys got? Not liquid. Go ahead. Who's that? Craig?
Liability.
Liability. Okay. The liability technically from a financial point of view is the mortgage, by the way. Okay. So when you're looking at the home, the home is a collateral to the bank for your liability. The liability is the mortgage, just to get technical on you. Okay. So do you owe the money? Yes, you owe the money. Yet, it's something that you have a certain amount of equity in it. Not liquid. What do we mean by not liquid? What does that mean when we say not liquid?
That can be turned into real cash.
Right. You can't go down to the ATM and say, I got 20,000 of equity, and say, I want my $20,000. You can't do that easily. It can be done. You could do a line of credit. You could sell it. You can refinance it, but there's going to be some cost associated with all of those. And that's going to diminish a little bit of the return for you. And it's going to take a second, call it 30 days or so, to be able to access it. And sometimes you won't be able to access it easily. If it's only, for example, 20,000, it's a $500,000 home, you'll probably end up at a loss because of the cost to be able to transfer it into an asset, a liquid asset. What else is a con of owning a home? Hello, Linda. Hello,
Maintenance and upkeep.
Mikey Beat. Mikey Beat. I hope I'm saying that. Mikey Beat. Who said maintenance and upkeep?
Me, Gary.
All right, maintenance and upkeep. So if you're a tenant and something breaks in your property, the HVAC breaks. Well, guess what do? You give the landlord a call, and the landlord hopefully comes and fixes it. And it's going to be their expense. Now, that being said, maybe you don't have a great landlord. Okay. But in theory, that's the way it should work. And most of the time, it probably does work like that. Okay. At the very least, they certainly have the responsibility. Maybe as a tenant, you may have some hassles or whatever the case may be. Yet, if as a homeowner, you're the owner of that home. My first home I ever bought was a townhome in Reston, Virginia. And 4 months after I bought that home, guess what happened? The HVAC broke. And I was a waiter at the time. Really proud I was a homeowner, but I didn't have $5,000 to fix that stupid thing. Right. So then I had to go and put it on a credit card. That's what I had to do at the time. Right. Like that was certainly not a good, like a good financial spot for me to be in. Yet that same townhome that I bought for $178,000, I later sold it years later for $425,000. Yeah, I'll pay for that HVAC. I'll go through that experience every single time in the future, right? Because when you look at the outcome of it, it was a crunch for a short period of time. Yeah, I know I should have had a home warranty, Connie. And guess what? 28-year-old Dan didn't know the damn difference of that. And 28-year-old Dan said no. 50-year-old Dan advises all of his clients to do so. And Connie, you are absolutely correct. I should have had a home warranty. That would have, who was my agent? I don't want to say that agent is still in business today, so I don't want to say. I don't want to say the name because that agent's still around today. All right. So credit reporting. So one of the things that we often get asked about, so moving on from the the pros and cons is my credit's not ideal. Can I still buy a home? Well, it depends is the answer, right? The best answer for me to give to you on that is let's have a one-on-one conversation. We could take a look at your scenario. The worst case that you could have is that we'll end that conversation with a plan. The best case is I'll say, hey, you know what? We can do that. I'll introduce you to a lender that has the best rates, the best terms in the business, that specializes in helping people with less than perfect credit. And we'll make that introduction so that we can actually find out what is the opportunity for you. Credit repair, there is no quick fix to credit repair. There's ways that you could challenge things and get them temporarily off your credit reporting. But the honest truth of it is the best way to fix credit is just to pay your bills and to not open up new credit lines of credit. Like don't open up new credit cards. And pay down your balances. That's the best way to fix your credit. One of the things that I really want to make sure that I caution you on is throughout the process to buy a home. If don't go and buy furniture. Wait until after you're in a home. And even at that point, you may have to put something on a credit card, but certainly do not do that during the process from the time that you start buying a home to the time that you go to closing. That can impact your credit. And you may not be expecting it. Understanding the credit report. Again, avoid opening up new credit cards, avoid closing credit cards because that can also impact your credit score. Avoid applying for new loans, avoid co-signing for any new loans. Don't do it. That's not a good idea. Your mortgages, typically most mortgages, the minimum credit score that they'll be looking at is around 620. There could be some exceptions to that, but that's a lower credit score. But most mortgages, that's what they're going to be looking for. What they're basing your credit history off of is your payment history, is the amount that you owe to the creditors, the new credit obtained, the mixed credit, and the credit history, the length of time that you have had it. Okay. And also debt to income ratio that the lenders are looking for is about 43%. So let me break that down into simple terms. if you have an income of $100 and you have payments of $40 that are your car payment and your regular payments that are outgoing, then you would have a 40% debt to income ratio. Okay, so we're going to put the mortgage in there as well. So this is just the ratio of how much income do you have coming in and how much expense do you have going out. What the lenders are looking for typically is about a 43% or better, and better would be a lower number. Okay, so the lower of the number, then the better your score is. Again, if I just lost you there on the nuances, don't sweat it. Let's set up a one-on-one. I can walk through it with you in a way that we'll use real numbers and we'll look at your numbers together. So again, pay your bills on time, keep your credit cards balances low, pay your balance, don't apply for more credit, never co-sign for financial obligations, and review your credit report. Make sure that it's completely correct. First step of a home buying process is to have a conversation with me. And then what we're going to do is we're going to introduce you to a lender. The lender is going to take a look at your credit. They're going to take a look at your income. They're going to take a look at your ability to be able to pay a mortgage, and they're going to put together a proposal for you. As they put together that proposal, then at that point, we're going to know exactly what you can afford. And then I'm going to go through a series of really asking you in-depth questions to really deeply know what your goals are and to be able to truly understand what is it that you're intending to do. Now, here's what we're going to do once you get your loan up and ready. I'm going to map out behind me on this whiteboard here the entire process so that you understand exactly what to expect throughout the home buying process. So we're going to put you up here where this is you, and we're going to make you a nice happy buyer. Okay. Can you guys see that? Is that close enough? We good? All right. So there's the happy buyer, and the happy buyer is going to meet with a happy real estate agent. So here's the happy real estate agent. The happy real estate agent is going to have a mean broker. I'm just talking about my broker. No, I'm just joking. So here's the broker. My broker's a sweetheart, but she's not mean. Don't tell her I called her mean. If anybody, don't tattle on me. Okay. So here's the players in here. So you have a buyer, you have an agent, and you have a broker. The broker, for all practical purposes in the transaction, it's not that important for you to really understand who the broker is, but technically when you hire me, you're actually hiring my broker. Okay. And that's the way that it works. So you would go and you would meet with an agent, and technically you're going to be hiring the broker. And then I act as a sub agent of the broker. So sometimes people get a little bit confused about the way that works. It's no different than your job, unless if you're the owner of the company or the general manager of the store, you work for somebody. And so let's say that you're a dental hygienist. You work for the dentist, probably the dentist that owns the office. When you go get your teeth fixed, the dentist, who you may never even see that owns the company, is the one that technically you're paying the check to for the services. Okay, but maybe a junior dentist may be the one looking at you, the dental hygienist, etc. Well, that's the same way as it is in real estate sales. Now, I happen to be an associate broker, so I qualify to be a broker. I've been a broker in my career. I choose today to not be a broker because I would rather work with you on a one-on-one basis. I don't want to be managing and leading agents at a high capacity. I do coach agents, but I don't want to be managing them in the capacity of a broker. So you go, you meet the broker, or you meet the agent rather. Now that agent, what they're going to be doing is they're going to be asking you, hopefully that the two of you are in rapport. And then as you're in rapport, the agent should be asking you a series of in-depth questions. Okay. And as they ask you those in-depth questions, they should be actively listening to you. Okay. Because the more that you share with me, then the better I can help you. Certainly, you could just take out your phone right now and you could go on Zillow, you can go on some online brokerage, and you could go and you could search homes for sale. But And we're going to talk more about that here in a second. We'll get into that here in a second. All right. So you have a conversation with the broker. They're going to help you to determine the, what size house are you looking for, the location, the size, the type. They're going to help you to really understand the process, right? So they should be explaining to you what I'm explaining to you today. They should help you to evaluate the home that you're going to be looking at. They should help you to be able to negotiate the deal, etc. So step one is you hire the agent. Step two, after the agent and you have the conversation, then the agent's going to, at that point, start to show you homes for sale. Excuse me. And so typically the way that I would do it is I would, have that conversation with you up front, and then we're going to look online. We're going to look on a computer, and I'll have a video conversation with you, and we'll look at the homes, home to home to home to home, and we'll look at the homes, and you'll tell me what works, what doesn't work. And once we refine it to something really, really significant, then what we're going to do is we're going to go out and we're going to hit that bullseye. Now, if we cannot hit the bullseye, meaning if the bullseye does not exist, then we have to change one of three things. That means we have to either change the price, the location, or the type of home. Meaning that we'll have to go back to the lender and say, Mr. Lender, Miss Lender, can we go up to 550 instead of 525? Can we, or we'll have to go to maybe a townhome instead of a single family home. Or maybe instead of Arlington, we'll have to be in Burke, or we'll have to be in, Alexandria on the Route 1/4, or whatever the case may be. Okay, so price, location, or type of home. Assuming that the home exists, then we will always hit that bullseye. Now, when we go out and we start looking for homes, I'll help you to analyze. I'll help you to evaluate. I'll show you the different homes. And I'll also help you understand the nuances of the communities. Because I've been doing this for so long, I know, the nuances that may not be apparent, such as I had a buyer about 2 weeks ago. He worked in DC and he was buying a home in Ashburn. Now, first of all, that's a little bit of a long commute. Secondly, where he was getting the home, he had to take a left turn to go to 267 of the green, the Dulles toll road there, the green, I guess it's the Greenway. And he had to take a left turn to get there. Well, guess what? For him to take that left turn, he's either going to be stuck in traffic for 35 minutes, not making a left turn, or he's going to have to take a right turn and go around about 1.5 miles around the opposite way. That's just it's not a silly nuance, but it's a nuance that the buyer cannot easily see. It's hard for the buyer to understand that when they're going there at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. Okay. But the agent hopefully has the experience to be able to know those nuances of the marketplace. So we're going to find that home. We're going to hit that bullseye. That home is going to be listed with a broker as well. And so on the other side of the transaction, you're going to have 3 people that look a little bit like the 3 people over here. So you're going to have an agent, you're going to have a seller, and you're going to have a broker. The agent is going to work as a sub-agent of the broker. So there's the broker there, and there's the seller. And when this happens, now this is important for you to understand this next piece here, because when this seller hires this agent, what they do is they agree to compensate them for the sale. It's not uncommon for them to say something like, I will pay you 6%. And of that 6%, I will then let you pay somebody who brings in the buyer half of that money. So let's say that this broker is going to agree with this broker to pay half that. Let's call it 3%. Okay. Now, commissions are different, whatever the case may be, but these are just examples. And it's not 100%. The example that I'm giving you is not 100% of the way that it may work. It's just, again, an example. So the seller says to the agent, Mr. Agent, I'm going to pay your broker 6%. We're going to pay whoever represents you half of that. And that's the way that we're going to compensate you for selling our house. Now, guess what happens if you bypass and not hire an agent, but instead you say, well, you know what? I'm going to go to an open house on Saturday. I'm going to look at that home. I'm going to speak to the agent. And I'm going to get that agent to write the offer for me. so that you're welcome, Connie. So that I'm gonna get I'm gonna go to that agent, and I'm gonna get that agent to put together the deal so I could save some money. Now that sounds to me like it makes sense, but the challenge with that is the following. Remember, the seller said to the agent, I'm going to pay you 6%, and then you could pay half that 6% to another broker. Well, guess what happens if nobody over here is representing you as a buyer? Guess what happens? That 6% goes to the listing broker. It doesn't go to the buyer. Okay, you guys follow me on that, the way that works? So where you may think like I'm going to save some money by not getting representation, the reality of it is that you save no money and now you have no negotiating power. Because in Virginia, there's only two choices here. Either you go in unrepresented, in this case over here, where you go to the listing agent, or the agent provides what's called dual agency. In Virginia, dual agency, it's legal. I don't think it's a great idea. In fact, I think it's a poor idea. It is legal, and what it is that the representative would represent both parties, essentially. Now, how can you represent both parties? You can't. So now what you could do is you can simply just fill in the paperwork. So if you don't get representation, then guess what? You don't get representation. Boy, that's the first time that those words ever came out of my mouth. I sort of like the way I said that. But it makes perfect sense, right? If you don't get representation, you don't get representation. And so this is a big transaction. This is a big thing that you're doing. So we want to make sure that we have your interest protected. So when you're finding the agent over here to hire, how do you find that agent? What do you guys think? Yell out some ideas. How do you find that agent? What are some ways you can find the agent to represent you?
Call me.
Call me.
Referrals.
Say that again.
Referrals.
Referrals. Okay, so maybe a friend used an agent. How else? What else can we do? Where can we find? I lost my cap. Where can we find an agent? Go to open houses. Okay, you can do that. How else can you find an agent?
Google.
Google. You could Google. I recommend that you Google me. You should, whoever you find, however you find them, you should Google them. And when you Google them, if they have nobody saying anything about the way that they've helped them solve a problem or achieve a goal, they probably have not very often helped somebody solve a problem or achieve a goal. Does that mean that somebody with less experience is disqualified to help you? No, not at all. I'm not suggesting that, because we all have to start somewhere. Yet, I recommend that you look to see what others are saying about that agent, so that the biggest predictor of the future is the past. So if you're looking to say, how's this agent going to help me? Well, how have they helped others before? Because that's going to be the predictor of how they're going to help you. So however you find the agent, I recommend that you Google them, look at the reviews, and please Google me and look at the reviews for myself. I throw it out there, and I'm going to tell you, honestly, I have 2 bad reviews. I have 2 bad reviews in the 16 years that I know of. In the 16 years that I've been helping home buyers and home sellers. And in both of those reviews, in my opinion, weren't they were valid from the client's perspective. Okay, yet I was still comfortable and confident in the care that I gave them, and the outcome that they got wasn't what they had desired. Now, there's hundreds of positive reviews. Okay, and so that's just something for you to consider, whoever you end up hiring. So now let's go back to the drawing board here. So we know who's who in the transaction, and so now what we're going to do is we're going to start looking at homes. As we're looking at the homes, the agent should be making sure that that you're aware of things, that you're aware of the surroundings, that you're aware of just general things in the property that might be a little bit off. Now, for example, maybe you see something or the agent sees something that looks like mold. Well, guess what? I'm not a mold inspector. I'm not a mold specialist. I'm not somebody who can measure asbestos or any of the other toxic challenges that may be, a part of a home. But guess who is a mold inspector? Guess who is a specialist in that? Yeah, Dan Derby's is. Okay. So again, a well-qualified agent is going to have people like Dan Derby's on their cell phone, on their speed dial, so that if there's a concern, I will just simply notate, hey, that's something to look at there. And if we're interested in a home otherwise, let's get Dan to come in and test it for us. Let's let the expert tell us what it is. And if it is mold, he can remediate it for you. He can have it removed professionally, expertly. Okay. And so now you can have the confidence of whatever home that you're getting into, that you're getting, that you know that it's safe and you know what you're getting yourself into. So we're gonna look at those homes, and now let's say we find a home and we're saying that's the one right there. That's the one for us. Well, your agent at that point should be helping you to start evaluate that home. So sometimes, hey, there it is. Greg Sekreiter he is a satisfied customer. There's a testimonial right there. All right, so oftentimes, so we look at this home, and now the agent's going to sit there and they're going to help you evaluate that. And what are some of the things that they're going to look at? They're going to look at things like, how long has it been on the market for? What's the average days on the market? Okay, so for example, if the average days on the market is 27 days and the home's been on for 65 days, it tells us one of two things. Either, and let's say there was no price drops, either you got somebody who will negotiate with you, or you've got somebody who's going to absolutely not negotiate at all. And I know that's sort of like a flippant type statement, but what I mean by that is you may have somebody that's such a hard head that they're overpricing their home and there's going to be no wiggle room and zero negotiation. Or more likely, you've got somebody who overpriced their home originally. They're feeling a little bit of pain about the marketplace, and now they're feeling like, oh goodness, I've got to sell, and they're going to be more willing to negotiate. Also, the agent should be helping you to look at, okay, well, this home over here down the street, it sold for $550. This one here sold for $575. The one for $550, it had 500 square feet less. All right, and they're going to start looking at what is actually sold, what's going on in the market, what are the factors that drive the market, and understanding exactly, the condition of your situation for this home. At some point, they're going to go ahead and we'll come up with a number, and let's say that's 565 in this example. And you're going to, with your agent, that agent's going to then, to the other agent, we're going to present an offer of them. Let's call it 565. And let's say we're going to close on April 16th. No, April 16th. So 30 days from today. And maybe 29, whatever it is. So a month from today. Okay. If at that point, the seller or the seller's agent says anything but yes, it's a no. Now, that's important to know. Even if it's something subtle like, well, you know what? I can't close on the 16th because I'm traveling. Can we do it on the 15th? Anything absent from a yes is a no, and it's a new offer if it's a counter offer. So a counter offer technically is a rejection in a new offer. Now, for practical terms, we can call it a counter offer, and that's fine. But I want you to understand the technical piece of this, because at that point, now the seller becomes the offeror and you're the offeree. And now if for anything that you decide to say, I'm not interested, you could just back out, and you're not obligated to stay with that first offer. Now, when you make that offer, at some point, we'll go ahead and we'll ratify it. Ratify, the term ratify means that we're going to agree to terms and we're going to agree to prices. So let's say we agree to the 565. We agreed to April 15th, and now we're ratified. And when we're ratified, we've agreed to terms and price. Well, the price is $565. It's April 15th. There's going to be some terms. Let's put these terms in here of the typical ones, which would be home inspection, would be appraisal, and it would be financing. So these are now your three. Hopefully you can see that. I think you can see that. Those are your three typical contingencies. A contingency just simply means that it's the contract is contingent on this happening or not happening. Okay. And so now those are your three contingencies that are going to be pretty typical. Typically the appraisal, we're looking at that's going to happen within 21 days or so. The financing, that's going to happen within 21 days or so. Now I know that we already got you qualified up front, yet the lender is going to want to make sure that they're doing their due diligence. They're going to go through a process called underwriting. So the lender who you speak with is the one that's going to, offer you the loan, and then the underwriter who they work with is going to go through and they're going to make sure that the bank is really, really not making a bad loan. Does that make sense to everybody? So that's the way that works. Okay. So that's why they get about 21 days there. But here's the thing, that home inspection happens typically within 3 to 5 days after you write the offer that gets accepted. What are you emotionally feeling the day after you write the offer that gets accepted? What are you feeling? What do you guys got? Yell it out. What are you feeling?
Scared.
Scared. Yeah, scared. Absolutely. Anxious. Thank you. Scared, anxious. Did I make the right decision? Am I making the right decision? And they're going to be thinking from that perspective. You would be thinking from that perspective. Well, guess what happens in the time period between 3 to 5 days after you go under closing? The home inspection. So the home inspection happens at that time, and you're already feeling some anxiety. Now the home inspector comes in and he puts down a report that has 100% of the time, there's going to be 100 things that they're going to say are wrong in that report. And you're already feeling anxious. You're already doubting yourself. You're going to take that report, and oftentimes what happens at that point, you're going to feel like, oh my goodness, it's going to just be like frightening for you. Now, what I want you to understand is really vital that you understand this going into it, that's the experience that you're going to have, because now that you understand it, when you experience that, you're not going to be as frightened. You're going to know that it's a part of the process. You're going to know that every single home, that there's going to be something wrong that the home inspector is going to say about it. And when you understand that, you can have more comfort and confidence that, okay, I made the right decision. Now, let's take a look at, are there big rocks on here like the foundation, the roof, the electrical system, the plumbing, the HVAC system that we're going to ask for the seller to repair? And if that's the case, what I'm going to recommend is not to ask them to repair it, but rather ask them to give you a credit. The reason why I'd rather them to give you cash in most cases, not all, but in most, is because now you're in control of the repairs. You're not reliant on the seller to do the repairs, because I promise you, in the times that that's happened, there's not been a single time that I've been a part of where the seller says, I want to do the repairs, and then the buyer says, hey, those are the best repairs ever. Not a single time has that ever happened, at least in my transactions. Okay, because typically what happens is they start going at each other and feeling like one's trying to take advantage of another. Which isn't the case. It's just, again, it's the way that it's in human nature, the way that we operate. I want to introduce you to Kyle from the home inspection company. I want to share with you a video about Kyle Mullane from KM Navy Home Inspection. He's going to talk to us about the home inspection.
My name's Kyle Mullane, and I'm with KM Navy Home Inspection, and we do home inspection. We do radon inspections and termite inspections. At the beginning of a real estate transaction process, you've already met your realtor, you've met your loan officer. The third most important person is your home inspector. The home inspection happens within 3 to 7 days of that contract being signed. It is very, very important to get a home inspector into your home in that time period. If you don't do it, the contingency just goes away, and you will never have a record of what that house looked like at that specific time period. Talk to your realtor and say, I need this home inspection. Let's go get it done within 2 to 3 days. So talk to your realtor about a trusted home inspector. It's very important. They trust the home inspector, that they'll do a good job. They'll get the report back on time so that they can negotiate. And so that's very important, to have someone that you trust, the realtor, and also what the realtor trusts in that home inspector, which means that you can trust them to do your report and do your home inspection professionally, cleanly, and quickly. During this home inspection process, at the beginning, the home inspector should take you somewhere into the home and explain to you what they're going to be looking for. What I do with my clients is I take them into the kitchen, I talk to them about what I'm going to do, what I'm really going to be looking at, and what I'm really, really, really going to be detailed about are 5 main things. Okay, the first one being your foundation, the second one being your roof, the third one being your electrical system, fourth being your plumbing system, and fifth being your HVAC system. So the home inspector should at least go over those 5 major items, and then obviously looking for paint and chips on the wall, things like that. They'll take pictures of it, and then they'll put that in the report later. During the inspection, the home inspector should take you around, tell you what's going on, tell you what he or she has been finding, and just kind of generally talk to you about how they are feeling, not feeling about the house, but what they're seeing in the house. Okay, it's not a feeling, it's just about facts, what the house is giving back to the home inspector. And then when the inspector is done, they should take the client somewhere, wherever, kitchen, living room, wherever's comfortable, sit down, talk with them about the house for 5 to 10 minutes. If there's any questions, that's the perfect time for the client to ask any questions. So at the end, when the home inspector, everybody leaves the house, the home inspector will go back to his office and start the report. The report usually takes about 1 day to 2 days to really generate a good report, and then get it back to your realtor so they can do some negotiations. That's kind of what a home inspection is. Congratulations if you're even thinking about buying a home, and double congratulations if you've already put a contract in place, and we'll see you at the next home inspection. Thanks. Bye.
All right, so that's good. So that's Kyle Mullane, and Kyle has been a home inspector for quite some time, and he is somebody who I use in a lot of our home inspections as well. So he's my go-to guy. So who's going to attend the home inspection? That's going to be you. That's going to be myself, or one of the agents from my organization, and that's going to be the home inspector. The home inspector, as they go through, one of the things that I'm going to suggest to you is to sort of set expectations up front so that you understand, hey, will we be able to talk about this at the end? Typically, it's best to sort of let them do their job. Sort of like if you went to the mechanic and you brought your car in, let them do their job, because that way they can focus on it. And then when they're done, they'll come out and they'll explain to you, and then, if something needs to be repaired, they'll ask you about that, etc. But certainly make sure that when you're there that day, and the home inspector, at least Kyle would, make sure that the home inspector explains to you the nuances of the home, so that you understand how, the things that you do need to maintain, that you understand, if it's a septic system, for example, like how often does it need to be pumped out, and the nuances that you may not, know, especially if it's your first home. So we go through, we do the home inspection, and then we get the appraisal done, we get the financing done. If the property does not appraise, meaning say we said 565, and let's say appraises for 550, then there's a couple options that happen at that point. Either we go back to the negotiation and the seller drops the price to the 550, or you come up with the extra 15,000, or we meet in between, or we part ways. Because those are the different options if that were to happen. We get ready for closing. 3 days before closing, the lender is going to give you what's called a closing disclosure, also known as a CD. They're going to go and they're going to review through the details of the loan and all the closing costs. That happens 3 days before closing. The day before closing, you're going to go and you're going to walk through the home. Could be the day of, and you're going to make sure that it's in the same condition as when you wrote the offer that got accepted, or if there was repairs done to it, at the same condition after the repairs were done. And then guess what? Now you got your keys. Now you're a homeowner. Congratulations. Freaking awesome. And now you should make sure that your agent is providing you a great team of people to be able to, like when people hire me, they don't just get like, here's the home. They get a cadre of people like Dan Derby's. They get a cadre of people like Kyle Lane, of people, HVAC, window, caulking, repairing the roof, whatever resources that you need, not just as a homeowner, but also as living in the community. If you fall down the stairs and your back hurts, I'll introduce you to Dr. Ben, who's one of the best chiropractors in the freaking planet. He takes care of my back. Because I've been doing this for so long, I've got those resources that I'd be happy to be able to pass on to you, and your agent should be able to do that for you. Last thing that I want to make sure that I talk to you guys about is foreclosure prevention. If for some reason, at any time you lose a job, you get hurt, you just fall into financial hardship, the bank's going to be calling you. They're going to be asking for you to pay the mortgage. Don't ignore that phone call. I want to make sure that you understand the bank is not in the business of owning homes. The bank is in the business of loaning money, getting the interest off the money that they loan, and that's how they make their money. So it's in their advantage. They don't do it because they're good companies or good people, though they may be, but they do not want to foreclose on your property. And not only do they not want to foreclose on your property, they would very, very likely work out something with you to make it so that if it's a temporary hardship, that there's a way that they can, make some sort of arrangements for you to stay in the home, if they don't foreclose on it, and just make sure that. But you have to make sure that you're not avoiding them. A lot of people will be like, the phone starts ringing. They're like, I'm not going to talk to them. I'm not going to talk to them. I'm not going to talk to them. And then that's where you could potentially get yourself in trouble, which I don't want to see you guys. Not that would happen to you, because we're going to make certain that we go through your finances up front to make sure that you can afford it. Okay. So 2 last things. If you're a real estate agent and you're attending this, thank you so much. I want to invite you to an event that I'm hosting next week. It's a 5-day event, 1 hour each day. To learn how to take more listings in today's market, you go to www.5daylistingchallenge.com. That's the number 5daylistingchallenge.com. If you're a home buyer and you are serious to buy a home, Leslie's going to put a link into the Zoom chat right now, and I'm going to ask for you to book a call with me, and let's discover exactly what your scenario is. You can also go to www.danrochon, if you're watching this on YouTube, DANROCHON.com, and to book a call with me, and we'll discover exactly what your goals are. And if you're just curious right now and you're thinking for the future, book a call with me anyways, because I can help you devise a plan, even if it's 3 years out, even if it's 18 months out. Whatever the case may be, I'd love an opportunity to be able to help work on a plan with you. Okay, what questions do you guys have? What ahas do you have from today's presentation? Thank you for being here today. Who learned something today? Question: at what point in the home buyer process should the buyer get a pre-approval versus pre-qualification? Upfront, before they start looking at homes, and the lender should be looking at the paperwork of tax returns, pay statements, etc., and running a credit and doing all that upfront. Not just doing like what we call like a paper, like, oh yeah, you say you make this much money, we'll write a letter. You want to have a substantial letter to say that you can actually qualify for the loan. What other questions? What ahas, Daniel?
Yeah, hey, it's a pretty competitive market. How do I make sure that my offer is going to be considered?
Going back when you were looking at the, you're looking at the marketplace here when we're evaluating, and we are determining what is the situation of the seller. At that point, if there's a situation where there's multiple offers, and that does happen even in today's market, then what we will do is we will bye, Connie. Thank you. I learned I didn't get a first. Yes, thank you, Connie. You can beat me up over that. Okay. So what we'll do is when we're talking to the seller's agent is we will determine what's important to them. So not every single scenario is going to be the same, because ultimately what is important for me to know is what's important to the seller. Once I understand what's important to the seller, then I can advise you as the buyer on pros and cons of the way that we approach it. I would never suggest to waive a home inspection. I would say we could do a home inspection just for informational purposes only, which means that you're going to do the home inspection, and you basically say yay or nay. You're either going to take it in as is condition, or you're going to say I'm out. That could protect you from knowing what the condition of the property is in. And we can also get you a home warranty to make sure that if there's any concern about appliances, that type of stuff, that we can protect you there as well. But I would not be comfortable. I've never would advise a client to go into it site, without being inspected, etc. It's just something that I don't think would be in your best interest. So Dan, to answer your question specifically, it depends on the seller's situation and on the buyer's capability. But what I can tell you is that we'll figure out a plan to make it win. What other ahas, what comments, what questions do you guys have? All right. Well, I appreciate your time tonight, and take a look at the links in the Zoom chat, and let's book a one-on-one call. I'd love to discover, what your unique situation may be. And if you're a real estate agent, there's a link in there to register to a class that's coming up for next week. And I'd love for you to join the class and, help you out in your business as well. So until then, thank you very much, Gary. Thank you, Anthony. Good to see you again. And God bless you guys. Have a good evening. See ya.
Thanks, Dan. See you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Dan.